What's up, Kyle?
Ready or not? Here we go.
You betcha.
What's that R&B song? Ready or not? Here I come.
You can't hide. Gonna find.
That's what it made me think of.
Yeah, I sing that all the time.
Do you?
Yeah, all the time. Because that's
Nice.
what it makes me think of.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right.
Little Lauryn Hill, little Fugees.
Is that who it was? I couldn't pinpoint who the artist was.
You know what that makes me? I have a specific memory.
The Fugees.
The Fugees. I have a specific memory of going into Circuit City. You remember the Circuit City?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
And in the middle of the Circuit City, they had a area where you could go in and turn the different speakers on and mess with that.
Be an annoying ass teenager.
Yep.
Yep.
And I sat in there and listened to that song.
Yeah, dude.
Yep.
It's about the right time.
Yep.
Circuit City. No more.
Nope.
Radio.
I
think they still have a Twitter.
Yeah, so is now who's joined the crew now is Bed Bath & Beyond filed bankruptcy.
Oh, really?
Yep.
The big B.
Let's
add another B to their Bed Bath Beyond is bankruptcy.
Yeah. Yep. So you missed last week because you were sick. What happened?
Just not feeling well, man.
Diarrhea.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the worst, man.
Real low energy too. Not able to get up and do much. Just feeling run down.
How long that last?
About like 20, almost 48 hours, something like that. Then I was starting to feel better. So
if the YouTube watchers are wondering why I keep drinking water and Kyle's got sweat on his forehead, it's because when he got to my house, I made him help me carry a refrigerator from the basement. Yeah. Outside, an old refrigerator with a Hall & Notes sticker on the front of it.
Yeah.
Try to keep that Hall & Notes sticker.
Try to remove it.
Yep. It had been on there for so long, it ripped when I tried to take it off. It's a magnet, so I didn't expect it to rip.
Hall & Notes fucking sucks. So
you think?
I don't really think they suck, but I'm not a huge Hall & Notes fan.
I'm not a huge fan of pop music.
Yeah.
But Hall & Notes has some jams.
Dude can sing. One dude can sing really good. I forget which one.
Hall.
It is. Hall. The one.
Yes.
Makes sense.
So my wife's mom was a Hall & Notes fan, and before she passed away, we would go drink wine with her some weekend nights and tie one on, as they say.
Yeah.
With a vino. And
Vino Veritas is what they say.
And that's what that is what they say, especially back in ancient Rome.
Yeah.
But there's that song that I didn't know was a Hall & Notes song, but you've heard it in a bunch of movies. It's oh, now I'm losing it. It's,
what I got?
That's the one.
Really?
That's the one.
Really?
Yes, that's exactly the one. Dude, that's Hall & Notes.
Yeah.
But then also, I heard some other Hall & Notes songs through my wife and her mom that are not bad.
Yeah, they got some songs.
Yeah, the one of them that I like is all I can think of is Sarah Smile, but that's not the one. It's
I Can't Go For That. I like that song.
Yeah, it's not bad either.
It's a pretty good one.
No, the one Rich Girl.
Oh yeah.
She's a rich girl.
Yep.
All right, good.
Now that
we got that out of the way and everyone knows neither of us can hold a tune, especially me.
I sing all right.
In the shower?
Whenever I choose to.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, I don't choose to very often, but I can sing. I can hold a tune. I don't think I have like the greatest voice or anything, but I can definitely hold a tune. I'll give myself that much.
I feel like I got to turn you up or something.
I was in choir when I was in church.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
While we're talking about not being able to hold a tune, that's something that I say like a defense mechanism. Like I bring it up and put it out there because I'm, for some reason, ashamed about it. It's like
that you can't hold a tune.
Can't sing at all. Yeah. And I feel like a little bit of shame about it. Like I should be embarrassed about that. And I'd like to talk to you about shame today, Kyle.
Shame. All right.
So as you start getting older, you start getting a little bit more introspective and you start realizing that you can kind of like control your development. Like once you realize that what you practice, you can actually, make some meaningful changes to your life. Shame is one that I would like to get rid of. I don't want to feel it anymore. I decided, it really gets me sometimes, man. And I was like, it doesn't have to. There's people out there that have zero shame. You know?
I don't know. I don't like that. Doesn't seem good to me.
Yeah, in some ways, because I'm thinking like, you know, like the people of Walmart, you know, I'm thinking of those people.
Yeah.
Like they don't care. They're driving around on their little wheelie majigger, and they're dressed like a clown and an ICP makeup, buying their pint of ice cream, and they don't care.
Yeah.
They got no shame.
No shame.
And you're right. That's not good. But I kind of want to have that power. I want to be able to turn that switch on and off.
Why?
Because it doesn't feel good, you know? Shame. And like the things that I feel shame about, not all of them are under my control. It's like I wish I could just give zero shits. Just flip that switch, man. That zero shits switch.
Yeah. What's that? The Serenity Prayer. You know the Serenity Prayer?
I think so. It's
I don't know it off the top of my head. I'm gonna fuck it up.
The AA prayer?
I think they use it. Yeah.
Yeah. Lord,
give me the strength to know what I can change or whatever the hell, you know,
the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
That's a good prayer, man.
Yeah. I don't think the idea of chucking shame in the bin, I don't think is a good idea. I think the shame serves a pretty good purpose.
Yeah, it does. But are there any instances where you feel shame and it's something you don't have any control over?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think most of the time when I feel shame, I think I'm pretty good at letting myself off for things that aren't really my fault. I do hold myself to a high standard. But yeah, when something is clearly out of my control, I'm not gonna like beat myself up over that, you know.
How about this? Do you do this ever? Do you remember a time when you were embarrassed, when you embarrassed yourself as a child?
Oh yeah.
And you think about it and you're just like
cringe yourself into non-existence.
Yes.
And you wish you could cringe yourself into non-existence.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even though the memory's 20 years old or 30 years old or whatever, you're still just like, God damn it, I wish I hadn't done that.
Jump off of a building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll admit one to you, and to the entire audience listening. When I was 14 years old, I had a girlfriend I lost my virginity to. And I'm sure she's a nice girl now, but she was a bitch back then at times, you know? And I don't remember the circumstances, but I remember my feelings were hurt and I cried in the back seat of her fucking grandma's station wagon. She was driving us to her house. And I wish I hadn't done that, man. I wish I hadn't done that, you know?
That's pretty good, man.
To this day, I'm like, God damn it, Chris, you shouldn't have done that.
You don't remember what she said?
No.
I
do. I remember that everybody gets out of the car. Like we just driven, like, you know, it was like a 25-minute drive or something. We just driven over there and everyone gets out of the car. I just wait in there for a little bit and then I get out of the car and I walk home.
Yep.
Just walked home.
It's a long walk.
It's a long walk. It's a long walk of shame, Kyle.
Were you shamed back then? Did you feel shame like in the moment having cried?
That's a great question. I don't exactly remember if I did in the moment.
Yeah.
But I do now. But there's lots of instances like that where I did feel super embarrassed in the moment. And it still feels like you know, I was reading some of that Freud and Jung and stuff a little while ago. And one of the things and this isn't even Freud and Jung, I think this is something Jordan Peterson said. He said, if you have a memory that's more than, I think he said like 24 months old, and you still feel like an emotional reaction out of it, that's trauma. That's something that you haven't processed. I got one of them from when I was 14.
Yeah. When you cried.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have things that I regret like that are just like embarrassing.
Yes.
Like when I was dating, you know, the girl that I moved down to Columbus to date. just like fights that we had, like in front of people. It's just fucking embarrassing, man.
In what way do you feel like you were a dick, or do you feel?
Oh, I mean, I was definitely a dick, without question. I was a dick, but just like I just don't understand why. Like, if we were gonna fight, like do it privately. Like I don't need to. We don't need to be like fighting in front of people.
So something like that happened to me yesterday.
Oh yeah.
So yesterday I went out to dinner, my wife and a couple friend of ours. And by the way, I was in Nashville for a few days last week. And
Nice.
Well, it was for work.
It
was for work.
Okay.
And I'm just exhausted. I'm just when you travel, like I just got back from spring break with the kids in Florida. Then I come back. I'm here for a few days. I go to Nashville. Then I come back. And anyway, I'm tired, so I'm just telling you that story. But I was sitting there at the table, this nice restaurant. Everyone's having a good time, and I bring up like a personal sexual thing.
Whoa!
And it's like basically what it is.
This is at the work dinner?
No. This was yesterday.
Okay,
this was yesterday.
I was like, that's why I was so confused by that.
Yeah, I just overlapped two stories for you to confuse you. So I basically brought up. I'll just tell you, I was away for 3 days, and then I came back, and I missed my family really badly, and I missed my wife really badly.
Carnally.
Oh wow, what were we?
Yeah.
And I thought I made it pretty obvious, like I was dropping hints, like atom bombs.
Yeah.
And then
humping her leg
when basically, and then when bedtime rolled around, I was waiting for her, and she finally comes to bed, and then I was like, I've had to go like adjust the thermostat, so I go downstairs and I come back upstairs, and she has the pillow over her face and she's snoring, and I'm just like, so
business time.
So I sort of bring this up like I'm trying to make a joke about it, but it's one of those things where it's like I'm making a joke about it, but really it's bothering me, and I just can't help myself but bring it up. And I wish I hadn't done that,
Yeah.
Wish I hadn't done that. I don't know if I'm embarrassed about it, but it just, in retrospect,
it's not worth it.
I wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah. Yep. Hindsight. It's a motherfucker.
It's a motherfucker.
Yeah, dude. But shame.
Shame. Yeah.
So I know that, we missed last week, but before we missed last week that you had said you wanted to talk about The White Pill by Michael Malice.
Oh yeah. Thanks for reminding me.
We still got your thoughts lined up on that.
Well, it was an interesting book. So I
haven't listened to it. I started listening to it. I haven't finished it. I'm probably about halfway through.
Okay. So if you're halfway through, then you know everything I'm getting ready to say. So I didn't know Michael Malice wrote a bunch of books. He has a bunch of books. I didn't realize that. But I did know that he was either Russian or his parents were Russian. Ukrainian. Potato.
Last name's Kretschmer. Oh, I completely agree with you. Potato.
Yeah.
But, I think he would say he's Ukrainian.
Yeah.
He speaks Russian.
Yeah. And that comes through in the audiobook, by the way, because he uses some Russian words. And the point is, the book's interesting in the fact that it starts off talking about Ayn Rand, which I thought was pretty cool. And it tells the whole history of a really high level history of the rise of communism and the horrors of communism in Russia, and a little bit about Lenin and Stalin and Trotsky and all that stuff. And I don't know that history very well, so that was pretty interesting to me.
I haven't heard. I literally don't think I've heard anything that I didn't know already, which is crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, good, man.
Yeah.
You didn't learn it in school?
No.
I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't learn it in school.
I didn't know it. I mean, and some of it I knew, but there was a lot of stuff I didn't know. Like I didn't know Trotsky was a Jew until you told me.
Yeah.
And then he told me what Trotsky's.
Bronstein.
That's the one. He also talked about Belarusia, which I assume is Belarus.
Yeah. But
I had never heard that before. I thought that was interesting. I also didn't know that. Was it Ukraine? Was it Ukraine and Georgia? And I'm trying to think of the original 3 founding members of the Soviet Union.
I don't remember.
Anyway, there was lots of surprises. But I'll tell you what this overwhelming takeaway for me was. It was the hardest thing to listen to because it's like minute over minute, hour after hour of him talking about the most horrible shit you've ever heard in your life. And I'm just like, when is it going to get better?
Where's the white pill?
What is happening?
Yeah.
And it was just tragic, man.
Yep. Lots of bad stuff.
Lots of bad stuff.
Lots of really bad stuff.
And the thing that made it the most surprising to me was, and I had never heard this before. And so if you don't know the history of the Soviet Union or communism, pay attention to this. When the Soviet Union rose to power, not even prior to that, when communism rose to power, it was touted as the political system of the future, right? It's like science. It's all based on science and equality and equity and all this stuff, right?
Yep.
Firmly rooted in equity. Everybody's going to be the same.
Fucking delusional, man.
And they thought that they were going to make industry as efficient as possible by getting rid of all the rich
stupid. Like we're going to create, like somehow some person's going to be able to do some kind of a fucking math equation and know how many pounds of potatoes that we're going to need. And we're going to grow that many pounds of potatoes and on the perfect pace.
Yep.
We're always going to have as many potatoes as we need and not a single fucking potato more.
Exactly.
And not just with potatoes, with fucking everything. It's so stupid.
It is stupid, but it's also the most arrogant shit I have ever heard.
You have to be stupid to be that arrogant, to be like, oh, I can do everything. I can control everything.
Yeah, but there's a really weird thing here where you're right. You're 100% right. But people some people, not all of them, who manage to be that arrogant are wicked smart.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like the fact that they're so competent and they think that they're smarter than everybody else.
Like blinds them.
Yeah,
it makes them stupid.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
And you see that reflected in academia now. Like all of the rich, the smartest, most educated people are pushing the most very similar ideas today. I mean, they're pushing the most ridiculous shit. But just this idea that central planning was going to be like this super sci-fi future, I couldn't believe that was the angle, and people were convinced of it because everything technology had done up to that point had changed the world in all these ways and improved people's lives. And like, yeah, let's just take this to its logical conclusion. We're gonna take Karl Marx. We're gonna make him fucking
space Karl Marx.
We're gonna make him some kind of AI robot, and he's just gonna make magic happen.
Yeah.
Yep. How are you supposed to plan for what seasons are going to be good and what seasons are going to be, how are you supposed to plan ahead to know how many potatoes to grow when you don't know what 3 winters from now is going to be like? Is it going to be a dry spell?
Or you don't know, like, what if people are going to decide that they start wanting something differently.
Precisely.
Like, I mean, at this moment, people want French fries, but maybe eventually they want French fries and tater tots. Then what the fuck do you do?
What do you do?
And
another thing that he said in that book was that, I can't remember the context of it, but somebody came over to the United States and saw the variety of food at the grocery store.
What the fuck?
Yeah. They thought that it was like propaganda until they saw it with their own eyes, because they had like 11 items in the grocery store. You could pick from 11 things,
It's crazy, man.
Did you get to the part where he talks about, I'm going to fuck this up. One of those Soviet rulers in like the Reagan era came over to the United States, got drunk, was picked up by the Secret Service naked on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Guy sounds like a partier.
It was like Khrushchev or something like that. Or Gorbachev. I don't remember who it was. All those Russian names, they just are like gobbledygook together to me. But yeah, he got picked up by the Secret Service. They hushed it up. And Reagan once was asked about it. And they said, what did he say? And apparently he said, when he got picked up by the Secret Service, he said, he wanted pizza. And they asked him, well, what happened? And Reagan said, well, he got his pizza.
Yeah, I imagine he did. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like when you're whatever the position is, the leader of the Soviet Union, you just get your pizza, you know? You get taken back to your hotel with a fresh pizza.
Yeah.
You don't go to jail.
Correct. Another one of those communist leaders that they talked a lot about was the guy from Romania. Ceausescu. Now, I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
And he was probably the worst case example of this.
I'm not to that part in the book yet.
Well, they just basically said he was the most incompetent human being you could possibly imagine. And he sucked up all of the wealth out of his country and treated people like cattle and just terribly. You remember when I had that dude working on my old house? He came over, he fixed some drywall. He like restuccoed the ceiling. His name was Alex.
Vaguely.
Yeah, he was Romanian. And we got to talking about politics, and he brought up Ceausescu, but I just nodded like I knew, because I don't want. That's another thing I'm embarrassed about. Is like, as an American, like so much of world history that's like common to people in Europe. It's like we don't even fucking learn it, and I just nodded like I knew what he was talking about, but I had no fucking idea. Yeah, that guy. He was almost in tears talking about it.
Yeah, I bet.
He's like in his 50s, this guy, and he came over from, the communist era to start his family here. He told me some fucked up, like he literally came over here with like nothing. And he's like a successful contractor now, and he has a family and all that. And this was right before the second Obama election, or maybe it was right before Biden. Might have been right before Biden was elected. And he said if Biden was elected, that he would seriously consider leaving the United States, because he saw what was happening, the direction we were going in, and he was so upset about it that he was crying. This dude is a burly contractor doing fucking labor in a stranger's house. We get to talking about politics, and he's like weeping.
Yeah, it's fucked up, man. It's a fucked up situation. Like I said, I haven't gotten to that part in the book yet, but I do know a little bit about it. But he's still talking about Stalin.
Talks a lot about Stalin. Yeah,
he's still talking about Stalin where I'm at in the book. I remember he was talking about the famine, the man-made famine in Ukraine. He was talking about some lady holding her baby, and the baby wouldn't stop crying. She started punching the baby in the face repeatedly.
Yep.
To get it to stop crying. It's not what you want to hear.
Dude,
it's not a good story.
There's so many examples of that, like how dehumanized people became under that system, and so many progressives in our country are yearning for that.
Oh yeah, well, that's one thing I wanted to talk about. With as far as I am in the book, like you look at all the tactics that they use, and that's all the stuff that they're doing now.
Yeah, like what? Like specifically?
I have notes in my phone, but my phone is basically dead right now.
Oh, no worries.
So manipulating the truth, the media, stuff like that.
Yes.
Reporters reporting on things that they have no idea about, or deliberately reporting lies.
Yeah.
Things like that. That's all going on now.
Absolutely.
Yes. What else was going on?
Well, they got like a, what do they call it? I guess I would call it a culture war, but they pitted, the people against each other. So the right now it's basically white people and the rest of the United States. That's what the media is trying to create, and it's fucking working like gangbusters.
Yeah,
for them it was the what do they call them? The successful farmers, what they call them, kulaks or something. Yeah, the kulaks versus the the
everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. And it was so bad that they reinforced that message in the media, constantly, that they were suffering and they were starving and communism wasn't working because of those people, over and over and over and over again.
For sure.
And that's what we're hearing It's all white people's fault, and specifically white men's fault in our country.
Yep. I think. Hold on, I'm finding my notes for this.
Yeah.
Um.
While you do that, I think it was Rob Schneider. I think it was. He tweeted something about his kids coming home and bringing up what did they bring up? Something they were learning in history. He asked them about the presidents, what they knew about the early presidents, and they could only name George Washington.
Yeah.
Only George Washington, couldn't name anyone else. And then he said, "Okay, what do you know about George Washington? What have you been taught about George Washington?" He was a racist slave owner.
Yeah.
What else do you know about George Washington? They knew nothing else about George Washington other than he was a racist slave owner.
Yeah.
What in the fuck, Kyle?
That sounds about right.
That is a manipulation of history to make people believe a completely different reality than what we were taught.
Yep.
Which draws into question whether what we were taught was reality either. But the difference between what we were taught and what our children are being taught is 188 degrees, man.
Yeah. There's a little bit more. I tend to side with what we were taught being at least a little closer to the truth, just based on the fact that there's a little bit more detail.
It's a little bit more nuanced.
Like when somebody tells you a lie and they make it a little bit more complicated, it's like, oh, this guy's not lying. Like, he's just like, that's a real story. He's got details in there. So I still am partial to what I was taught originally because, like I said, it's just a little bit more to go off of.
What are the kids gonna think when they see that famous painting? Who painted it? I don't know, but Washington crossing the Delaware,
yeah.
You know, and like Washington's like up on the front of the boat, looking like fucking looking like John Smith.
They're probably like, those people on the boat are his slaves.
Yeah, but the story behind that is an amazing story of one of those Revolutionary War battles where the British basically had the colonies cornered, and it could have been the end. And that motherfucker snuck by the dead of night in the fog out of there to end up coming back and turning the tide of the war. And they don't know that. They don't know that George Washington was a general in the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They don't even know that he had 3-4 sets of false teeth. Can't remember how many, but he had like a bunch of false teeth.
Did he?
Yeah, remember he had teeth made of wood, he had false teeth, made of ivory.
Oh yeah, he had like mix and match, you know?
Yeah.
He could do more than one kind.
Absolutely.
All right.
Sorry, man.
So the first thing was they were talking about the propaganda of the deed. Do you remember them talking about that?
Fill me in a little bit and it'll come back.
It's like these anarchists, they would, assassinate people. Make bombs and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
And they would say, when you kill somebody, when you assassinate someone for political purposes, don't hide, say why you did it. Say, this is why we did it. Within days, you need to like be putting flyers out, things like that. And just with like, as crazy as things are getting, like that doesn't seem that far off to me, like the left particularly is already, they call for violence all the time.
They do.
They like act like they don't, but they do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that just seems like the logical conclusion,
Yeah. I mean, to say,
punch a Nazi in the face.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But even to say that like words are violence, which is something that drives me absolutely nuts. But when they say that words are violence, which by the way, guys, it's fucking not, they're not. I'm a little bit extreme in this view. I don't really believe that there's such a thing as inciting violence. And even like, if you're dumb enough to fall for it, then you're the one that's guilty. And I'll make this argument when they're yelling fire in a crowded theater as well. It's like, if you stomp on somebody, you should go to jail, not the person who yelled fire. I don't want to get down this path. I'm just telling you, I have an extreme view on this. Where was I going with this? Violence. So they say that words are violence. And what that means is, like, if I were to say to you, what you're saying to me is hurtful, and what do they say? They don't say scared. Sometimes they do. Unsafe. I feel unsafe. It's like you've created this like image of these invisible daggers coming out of your mouth and harming me. and I say to you, your words are violent, then if you're doing violence on me with words, don't I have the every right to do violence back on you? And is there a difference between your words being violent and me punching you in the face? See, when you say words are violent, you are inciting violence, you bitch. That's what I think. Sorry, I get a little hot under the collar sometimes.
I like it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I've seen so many people saying things and getting like wailed on or jumped. And I'm like, it's not justifiable, you know? And if you pretend like words are violence, then you are giving somebody a pass to do actual violence by manipulating reality, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have to say about that.
All right, Forrest Gump. All right. Yeah, the next thing I had on it was the same thing with like the media. I wrote down the media is not even allowed to say the words famine or starvation.
Ooh.
That seems like something from today. It's like, nope, you can't even say that fucking word.
Right.
Don't even say it.
Yeah, they would come up with some other word to say that sounds better. Yeah, they would call it food inequity or something.
Yeah.
Nutritional inequity.
It makes me think of the Hunter Biden thing, you know?
Yeah.
Just like they report on people.
So I don't know if this is true. This is something my wife's aunt told me, and she's very conservative. She said that Hunter Biden is supposed to be appearing in court because he's not paying child support to his child.
Mm-hmm.
And the claim is that he doesn't have the income. He can't afford to pay it. And maybe that's an oversimplification, or maybe this is entirely made up. I don't know. But that dude, didn't he get in trouble for selling paintings for millions and millions of dollars?
Yeah, I think so. I think I remember hearing something about that.
If that's true, and he can't pay child support, and he's the president's son, you kidding me?
He was making like that Burisma company in Ukraine was paying him like some ungodly amount of money to do nothing, like $250,000 a month or something like that.
It reminds me of that episode of Family Guy. Brian's like, "You got money for fake mustaches?" Or Stewie,
"Where's my money, man?"
Yeah, Hunter Biden's got money for cocaine and hookers, but he doesn't have money for child support. It's a joke, man. It's a national embarrassment. They should have done with Biden what they did in the old days. And this is going to be insensitive, but you know, JFK's sister, they lobotomized because she wouldn't stop sleeping around.
Mm-hmm.
They just brushed that under the rug because it was the president's family. Nobody ever heard about that. It was a secret. It was a state fucking secret. That's what should have happened to Hunter Biden, man. This is
lobotomize him.
Well, you know, it's an embarrassment. The fact that the leader of our country is a decrepit old man with a fucking, I don't even know what to call Hunter. Just a
fuck up, man.
A fuck up. Yeah.
Makes a lot of money for a fuck up, though. I'd like to be fucking up like that.
Sorry. What else you got, man?
So I already talked about that guy. Well, I didn't talk about him specifically, but it's just more journalism type shit. That guy, Walter Duranty, with all the just like reporting things that are blatantly false, you know, that kind of stuff. So we already talked about that a little bit, though. Okay, so this is something that you talked about. It says that the Bolshevik Party wanted to make the ideas of shame and family loyalty to be viewed as bourgeois and antithetical to the party line. Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, family loyalty. So it's like they wanted you to be loyal to the party above all things, and that meant that the traditional lines, you know, which were tribal and familial, they had to be superseded by this higher order, you know, standard, which was to be loyal to the party. And that requires breaking down the family. It requires breaking down the traditional feelings, the feelings that were built into our culture by evolution. Like we protect our family because that's our genetic lineage. If you don't protect your family, you die out. If you don't protect your tribe, you die out. So you have to undermine that in order to get people to attach themselves to some other standard. And so you can look at, the nuclear family breaking down in this country. You can look at what's happening with our children right now, being basically the government's trying to pretend like the children are their property and not ours. That this is all we're playing out with this whole trans argument that we're having right now. That seems like a parallel, but what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're definitely doing the same things now. Again, it's more stuff that they're more things in common that they're pushing the agenda that they're pushing back then and now is like that undermining of the family unit. It's like the game plan just doesn't ever really change. You know what I'm saying?
It's like that's true, and it makes me wonder. Maybe it's not intentional, maybe it's coincidental, but the fact that we didn't learn this history is what is allowing this to happen. Because if we'd known this history, we would see it for what it is. So I wonder, like, were we not taught this history because the communists were established in academia and they wanted to whitewash it so that this could happen again? Is it that intentional, or is it just the fact that we didn't talk about it had left this opportunity open?
That's a good question. I like the conspiracy theories. So, but the other thing that they said they wanted to, kind of shift the view on to make it viewed as bourgeois and antithetical to the party line is shame.
Yeah.
So why do you think that the Bolshevik part, why would they want to get rid of shame, or why would they want to make it to where shame is antithetical to the party line?
Well, because if you don't feel shame, you're capable of doing terrible things. You're capable of tell you something like that. But that must mean, if that's the case, that must mean that they anticipated they would have to do terrible things, and that they anticipated people would have to lose their traditional values in order for this to work. Right? We have to prepare people to see terrible things where their conscience would normally say, "Hey, this has got to stop," and we have to take that barrier away so that people can see people being shot and buried in shallow graves. People can see their kids and family members taken from them and killed and raped, and it's all for the greater good. You know what I mean? It's like that's so dark that I can't really even fathom it.
It's very dark.
It's so dark.
Yeah. We started the episode with you saying that you wanted to get rid of shame.
Yeah, no, that also makes me feel shame right now.
It makes you feel shame for wanting to get rid of shame.
Yeah. I don't want to get rid of shame because I agree with you. I think it's very important. But there's some things I wish I could just not feel ashamed of.
For sure. I definitely get that.
Yeah.
But I we like Jordan Peterson a lot here.
Yeah.
I don't think Jordan Peterson would say get rid of shame.
No,
I think he'd be like, no, you keep that shame.
Yeah. Bro. Yep. Yeah. He'd probably ask me. He'd probably force me to tell him what it was I'm specifically referring to.
Yeah.
But I don't really want to do that.
Like I cried in the back seat.
No.
With my girlfriend's
No.
car.
Yeah.
So that. What else did I have? So, one second here. I don't know, that's basically it. But just like you see how everything went there, and knowing that the people who were doing all that stuff were just like the ideological forefathers of like the people who were doing stuff now, it makes me more comfortable with saying that I want Caesar. You know what I'm saying? Because look at what happened there. And I don't know, man.
Listen, I sort of understand what you mean. If you by that you mean if we had a strong ruler that could quash it, that for once and for all, then that would be ultimately the best. But the thing is, Stalin was Caesar, you know?
I guess.
So if you allow a Caesar, you don't know what kind of Caesar you're going to get, you know?
Yeah. But if you don't do anything, if you just sit there with your hand, if you just sit there on your hands, you get Stalin, and that's what we're going towards.
It's fucked up.
So what do? We just sit there and fucking take it? No, I want Caesar.
I guess we have to have the battle of the Caesars. We have to have a good Caesar. Let's call him God. And a bad Caesar. Let's call him the devil.
Yeah.
And we're going to pit them against each other.
Cage match.
You know what scares me about that is I feel like there's a lot. Maybe this is just the propaganda, but I feel like there's a lot more people that would be signing up for the devil's army in this weird analogy of mine. They would have a bigger army,
Maybe.
So there's a lot of people that are talking in weird ways now about what's going on politically and culturally as being demonic and evil.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like conservatives are want to do that sometimes. They use that kind of language. But I'm starting to see some truth in it. Like I'm starting to see ways in which it makes sense to me that you would use those words. And we talked about one of them already. And I said that this whole communist philosophy is arrogant beyond all imagining. And going back to Jordan Peterson, he says maniacal arrogance, Luciferian arrogance, the pride, right? The pride that caused Lucifer to think he was as great as God and he was cast out of heaven. It's like that's the kind of arrogance that I see in politics and in the leadership of culture, whatever that means. It's like, people that are far too big for their britches, who think that they know best, and so many dumb people who agree with them. And that bothers me, man.
Yeah.
Now, is it the case, do you think, that in sheer numbers, that people like that, the sheeple out there, outnumber the, rational thinking people in this country?
The pessimist in me wants to say that, yeah, I think that there's a lot more like bottom of the barrel people. But I don't know. I really don't know, because I try not to just concede to my inner pessimist all the time, because I think that he's wrong a lot more than I give credit for.
Good.
But I don't know, man.
I mean, there's a lot of bottom of the barrel people on the right too.
Oh yeah.
But here's the good news. If it came down to armed conflict between progressives and rational human beings in this country, even if we are outnumbered, have you seen them? Have you seen them? The most effeminate men, like the most ridiculous people you've ever seen in your whole life. Those are the people we're up against. And I'm sure some of them are formidable. Some of them must be formidable.
Some of them definitely are. Yeah.
But a lot of them. I went to the Natural History Museum this weekend. I took my daughters because my oldest daughter they both love dinosaurs. But my oldest daughter loves history, and she's a lot like me. And I've never seen a dinosaur fossil reconstruction like at a museum before. And we have one. We have a bunch, 40 minutes away. So I was like, let's go to the Natural History Museum, like kind of for my kids, but kind of out of curiosity for myself. And we go there, and every single person who works there is the most, like, boy, I don't know how to say this. I don't want to be like mean unnecessarily, but like every woman there was super butch with colored pink mohawks and combat boots, and all the guys were effeminate and just transgendered people, and just the whole circus of liberals were there, and I noticed it everywhere, and I thought to myself, and I'm just never too sure how much to just blurt out on this podcast. But I thought to myself, these people work at a museum. They're smart people. They all have probably advanced degrees. These are the people that the universities are churning out. And there were a few of them that were nice. And I again, genuinely, they were nice with the girls. They were like teaching them things, and they were great people. And I would never say anything bad about them. But there were others that it doesn't make me think well of the educational system in this country, especially the universities. This is what we're churning out, you know?
Yeah. Not good.
I have a picture of one of them. I'll show it. I want to show you.
Yeah.
And the thing is that makes me feel shame. Bring that back up.
You snapped a picture of one of them.
Well, she was in the picture with my kids. I'm going to call this episode Shame. Shame. She was actually one of the nice ones, and she is like a caricature. She's a caricature, dude. I'll show you. I can't show the audience, but I'm going to show you.
She voted for Biden, you think?
She voted for Biden for sure.
Yeah.
She voted for Obama 6 times. Oh, man, here we go. Oh, here she is.
Oh,
do
do
you see the mullet behind her?
Yep.
Yeah. Can you tell it's a her right away? All right. So and she was a nice lady, man. But
looks like Jay Leno with a mullet.
It just makes me wonder, like, if this is the best that we can. I mean, man.
I don't think it means anything good. I think, I hate to be, like I said, I try to keep the inner pessimist under control, but I don't see good things in the future. We were hanging out last Friday. I came over just to hang out, and we were talking about how bad things are and how it seems like the fall of Rome,
Yeah.
And just going forward, the way education is going, we're not going to have it could get bad, man. We're not going to have enough educated and experienced people to do the things that we need to do. So we're either going to have to let things collapse, or we're going to have to import that help from other parts of the world, which has its own set of problems.
Right, because you're importing culture and other things.
Yeah.
I told you this at some point. You may not remember, but my oldest daughter doesn't have homework this year.
It's crazy.
Did you hear what I just said? They're not giving her homework this year. Not like she gets a weekend off, or they're going to limit her homework to 2 pages. She hasn't had one piece of homework all year and won't.
That's crazy.
She's almost done with the 1st grade. Nothing all year long. I recently found out that they did that as a policy because it was considered to be discriminatory against minorities.
You can't expect minorities to study for that long.
I don't have any idea what that means.
Who knows, man?
And it's the same thing. It's like minorities aren't represented enough in the honors classes, so they got rid of the honors classes.
Yeah.
What in the fuck, dude? What in the fuck? I don't even know what to say about that. Yeah. And there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people that would hear this and think I'm the asshole. Thousands of them.
Yeah, man. We gotta make everyone else. We gotta make everyone else dumber.
What do you think is going to happen to our country if everybody's dumber? Because everyone is going to be dumber.
It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good.
And listen, I consider myself to be a pretty good parent. I'm not perfect. I'm a pretty good parent. And even I, in the back of my mind, I'm like, thank God there's no homework. I don't want to be doing an hour of homework, before I have to cook dinner and put the kids in the bath.
Sure.
And there's tons of parents that are like, relieved. And we're all wrong.
I don't know if you're wrong, to be honest with you. I don't know that homework is necessary. I think that if school was done more effectively, I don't think you need to send them home with work. Do your fucking job at school. Do it where we're paying you to fucking do it.
Yeah.
Now, like teaching kids discipline and stuff like that, that's another thing. But the idea of like tons of homework every night, I don't think that that's necessary. I think that it's been demonstrated that that's not necessary.
So you're probably right in a lot of ways, but I'll tell you, when I was in college, like my second year in college, I took this math class, and math has not been my strongest subject. And I thought I could skate by in this class like I did every other class my entire life, and I was wrong. And basically, what I would do is I would pay attention during the lectures, and I would learn whatever I was supposed to learn. We'd do some problems together. Usually, it was like homework problems from the night before. We'd be going over select ones, and then I would go home and I just wouldn't do the homework. And I almost failed that class. I think when it comes to math, repetition is really important, and you got to get the reps in, man.
I agree with you. Things like that, you do have to just get the reps in. But I also think that even in something that is not like that, when you're talking about college, you're talking about something different. You're talking about becoming an expert in something. So you're going to have to develop, you're going to have to commit some time to that,
Right.
I'm talking about like kids, like kindergarten through high school. I don't think there's any reason to be loading those kids up with homework. I think you're a failure as a teacher if you can't like get the job done in the time that you have.
Yeah. I think for the most part that's true. I think once you start getting into more advanced math, like once you start getting into algebra, you need the reps, man. Maybe geometry too. You need the reps. But history is another weird one because it's like we've made that into like a memorization practice.
Garbage.
And we should be telling stories, man. We should be doing history like Dan Carlin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, dates. I get it. What's cool about knowing the dates? It's like Jeopardy. Like, if like somebody just talks about the Norman invasion. Oh, 1066. I know it's like if somebody just happens to talk about the Norman invasion and it's like, what year did that happen? And I'm like 1066.
Yeah.
I look smart as fuck for a minute,
Right.
But that's it. That's the only good reason to know, years and whatnot.
I think there is a value to having like a scaffolding of timing, so where things are in relation to other things. But
it's good to have some key instances, or you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So like the way I do that is I think about like the Stone Age, then classical antiquity, and then the Middle Ages, and then the Renaissance and the modern period. And it's like I kind of know the dates of those, and I can keep the story straight. And I think that's helpful. But I think that telling a story is so much more important because history, it's more memorable that way when it's when it's a story. And rather than just memorizing names and facts, because even if you do memorize names and facts, a week later that shit is gone. But if you hear a good story,
even if you forget the name, you'll be like, the guy, he did the fucking thing. It sticks with you for sure.
And we've been doing that as human beings, telling stories, man. Over the campfire, granddad puts you on his lap, tells you a story. It's like that shit. We love stories. So, I think it needs to be more like that, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this before. I think there's a lot of kids who are in school who don't need to be going to all of the fucking classes that they're going to. There is no reason to be teaching some of these kids history. If they have an interest in it and they want to, that's fine. But wasting resources trying to get some kid who does. I mean, I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm not trying to be a dick at all. He's going to grow up to be a full-time, not even management level worker at a McDonald's.
Yeah.
Okay. So if he has an interest in history, that's fine. If he has an interest in math, he probably doesn't. If we're being perfectly honest, he probably doesn't have much of an interest in high level mathematics. They probably confuse him. So we don't need to be teaching that kid fucking trigonometry. He can have study halls. He can get out and go to work earlier.
You still agree? Well, yeah, but you still agree that there's some basic shit that everybody should be required to learn: reading, writing, arithmetic, right?
Sure. Yeah. But if a kid is, if a kid is 13 and he's not he's not grasping the reading, the writing, and the arithmetic, I don't beat yourself in the head,
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like you just never know. Like, because I'm thinking that there's been times in my life, like when I went from the city schools to the suburban schools, where that first year, if you would have like evaluated me that year, I'd have been in a different trajectory, you know. But I was perfectly capable of a higher level trajectory.
Sure.
It's just like it reminds me of Minority Report. It's like if we had a way of knowing the future, if we could know for certain what you're really capable of, then I would agree with you. But we just don't, man. We just don't.
I don't think that you need to be able to assess somebody and know immediately. You know what I mean? There's going to be, like you said, there's the basics that we're going to try to teach everyone, you know, and when you're teaching everyone those basics, first of all, you're going to notice some kids right away who are like, this kid gets it. Like
right.
this kid's promising, you know? So then you find more things for them. Some kids take a little bit longer, you know?
Right.
I think that if it was up to me, which I know nothing is up to me, but if it was up to me, education would be completely, I have ideas on what I would like to do, but it's not what we're doing, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that there are some people, and I'm not saying that they're like less than, you know, in the eyes of God or anything like that, but we're wasting our time trying to teach them like really high level, you know, like if it's up to them, they're never going to take a philosophy class ever,
sure. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So why are we like, you know, I don't know, but just because I like want to eliminate that, you know, I still want to develop the people who, you know, have the potential.
Right.
And I think that we could do a better job of finding those people and fostering those people.
I think so. I think one of the things I brought up, I think when we talked about this last time, was those Montessori schools where the kids get to learn what they want.
Yeah.
And if they excel in it, they get to be in the same class as older kids who are at that level. And something about that sounds right to me. I think that's good. But then I got this other idea while you were talking about, like, imagine you were to teach me math as a kid, knowing that I like to build things. So you teach me math by putting me like with a carpenter and teaching me how to cut angles. I learn angles by cutting them and measuring them, right? And doing something like practical and learning the math with that, rather than sitting down and reading a book and talking about concepts. There's some kids that will learn way better that way. I might have been one of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's other ways to do it, man.
For sure. I think we should start exploring those. But we're not going to. That's my inner pessimist coming out again.
Gotta beat that fella down.
Yeah, he's right a lot, though. I mean, like what? I don't know. I just try to think of like how shitty everything is, and like what are we going to do to change it? You know.
As soon as you do that, it seems so overwhelming. It seems like the whole world comes crashing down on you. You know, you just got to take it one little step at a time. Like Jordan Peterson says, you take the smallest problem that you can identify, and you break it down into the smallest possible units of action, and then you just take little baby steps, man.
That's all you can do.
It's all you can do, and it makes a big difference, actually.
Makes a big difference. Yeah, it definitely does. In your life, it can make a big difference. I do wonder, like, how much making a difference. I mean, this is not like this. This sounds like an excuse to be nihilistic, and I'm not about that. I think that's gay. But like, I wonder how much making a difference in my life is going to matter that much. You know, I just feel like things are getting bad. You know, and
that's super depressing, Kyle.
I mean, I don't feel good about it. I don't, you know, but. You can't. I mean, you don't feel that way. You don't get those vibes every now and then.
Yeah, for sure.
Like
I try not to think about it.
Yeah, I try not to think about it too. But
yeah,
it's easier said than done sometimes. You know.
Yep.
This guy I work with, was talking to me. He just randomly. I was helping him do something, and he was talking to me about how like scared he is about everything. I was like, dude. I feel you, man. He's like, talking, it's going to be World War III, Russia and China are getting together. And it's like, yeah, I know, man.
Yeah. Our economy is just shaky right now, man. And shaky.
Yeah, I know.
Banks are collapsing. the Fed keeps having to raise rates, so it makes the problems worse. But they can't do otherwise, because otherwise the value of our currency is going to keep falling, and it feels like we're on a tightrope.
We are, yeah, definitely on a tightrope, and it almost feels like there's no making it to the other side. Like we started out on the one building, and now we're out on the tightrope without anything underneath of us. And it's like, I don't know if we're going to make it to the other building,
Yeah, we're halfway out.
There's no going back.
There's no going back. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just funny that a guy from work opened up to me like that. Cause like I told him, I was like, I don't really talk to people about this kind of stuff because my opinions are bound to piss people off.
Right.
He was talking about Russia and Ukraine. I was like, I'm basically supporting Russia at this point, like, I mean, that's basically where I'm at.
How old is this guy? About
50, maybe somewhere in that area.
So how did he take that when you said you're basically on Russia's side?
I didn't actually say that, but I did say that I don't support Ukraine. I have zero support for the Ukraine. I mean, I don't want Ukrainian people to die, but beyond that, I really don't care.
Yeah, I think that if the people wish to remain sovereign, then they have the right to fight for it, and the cards fall where they may. I'm not an interventionist guy myself. I don't really think it's any of our business. So that's where I fall on the matter. I'm like, if they want to fight, that's up to them. And if they win, they win. If they lose, they lose. And we got to be okay with that.
Yeah. I think as far as the Ukrainian people, the people who are not in government, I don't think that they care that much, to be honest with you. I think that there are people in the Ukraine who do care. People who, and I'm sure that there are Ukrainian people who do care. I'm not saying that they all don't, but I'm willing to bet that most of them are just like most Americans who just are like living. It's like, I really don't fucking care who's in charge. I do not care.
Yeah.
And that is more or less how I'm becoming at this point. Is I don't fucking care who wins the next election. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff we could talk about there as far as the next election is concerned. But I want to save it for a minute because I want to ask you about Orthodox Church, and I'm going to ask you about your catechism stuff because
it's not much to say, really. I'm still in the inquisitor phase, so I'm just like going to church,
what does inquisitor mean? You haven't started officially,
like I'm like hanging around,
Yeah.
And when they see that I'm like not flaky, then I start my catechism.
And you just have to wait. You don't know how long that's going to take. You just wait till they tell
I
you.
assume he said probably a couple months,
That reminds me of that episode of Game of Thrones where the girl goes to the face-changing place and she sits out in front of she just doesn't leave. Remember?
Yeah.
Arya Stark.
Oh, yeah. How could I forget that shitty fucking part of the show?
You thought it was shitty?
Oh, God. It was so stupid.
What?
It could have been cool. It had potential.
It did.
Yeah, they just blew it. Remember she got stabbed in the stomach a bunch of times and then jumped into what amounted to a sewer into that water and didn't die, didn't get infected. So fucking stupid, man. That show was retarded towards the end.
Yeah.
Sorry, getting me all worked up. I fucking hate Game of Thrones, man. I loved that show so much, and then it ended so poorly, dude.
Yeah, I didn't like. I have a different level of like I don't know what word it is, patience for that. Like I will allow a lot, especially in a fantasy situation. I'll let a lot go.
Yeah.
But there was a couple of scenes, even at the very end, like that giant battle with the dragons and all that. It was super impressive, man. Like visually.
Yeah.
It's like when I watched the new Star Wars trilogy. It's like they're the shittiest movies. As far as like the story, it's like you just recycled the old story. You added a woman, and you think you're going to get woke brownie points. And lots of people went to see that movie, and they made lots and lots of money. So I guess they're right. But apart from it being visually beautiful and cool to see, those were some shitty movies, man.
Stupid. I tried to like the first one. I had like a crush on Daisy Ridley, so I like tried to like it. But
Daisy Ridley,
Rey, the main character, she's very pretty.
I have more of a crush. She is very pretty. I have more of a crush on the the big burly one that they got rid of, the UFC girl. What's her name?
Oh, Gina Carano.
Gina Carano.
You and me both, man.
Yeah.
I love Gina Carano.
That poor lady.
Fuck her. She's doing fine. She's working for the Daily Wire.
Is she?
Oh yeah.
Really?
She did a movie for the Daily Wire. I guess I don't know if she's like working for them, but she did a movie for them.
What do you think Tucker's gonna land?
Oh yeah, we should talk about that. I don't know what to think. Part of me thinks that he might be like getting it ready for some kind of political run, you know?
Oh, I hadn't even really considered that.
I don't really know though, because I don't know if he would run against Trump. I think he might win if he ran against Trump, to be honest with you. I think he's like Trump with all the upgrades, you know?
He's like Trump, but he's as pretty as Justin Trudeau, kind of.
And he's also like way smarter than Trump and Justin Trudeau, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting. I kind of thought that, like, I don't really know of any network where he might fall, except for like maybe the Daily Wire, but they can't afford him.
No, he's not going to go to. He's either going to start his own thing.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
like the Blaze, he would just start his own thing. You know, he's got if he brings a part of his audience, he'll be rich as shit for the rest of his life, and he will bring part of his audience
for sure. I'll go wherever. I'm going to listen to Tucker still. I love Tucker.
Yeah, I really haven't listened to much, but what I have listened to, I've more or less liked. Yeah.
Did you by any chance hear that speech he gave like a couple days before he got fired?
Refresh my memory.
It was at Heritage, the Heritage Foundation.
What did he say?
That basically like the essence of all conflict is religious in nature. Basically, is what it boiled down to.
No, I don't think I saw that one.
It's a good one. You should listen to it. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I wanted to talk to you about that. I also wanted to talk to you about your near-death experience. Tell the audience about your near-death experience.
So I was at work, and I have these 40-foot long steel columns that I have to cut down so that they can weld them. And they're banded together with metal banding that you like crank real tight.
Yeah.
I was cutting the metal banding, and normally we take they come in bundles of 4, and we'll have a bundle of 4. We'll take some wood, some like 4x4 wood, and put it going, this way. And then we put the 40-foot long things on top of it so that we can get straps for the crane and, forks for forklifts underneath of them. Then we'll put more 4x4 wood on top of the bundle, and then we'll put another bundle on top of it. So you got 2 bundles, and then I just take from those bundles as I need to cut columns.
Yep.
So I was cutting the straps off of it, and one of the 4x4s that we had underneath of the bundle was not, what am I trying to say? The 4x4 was not sticking all the way out from the bundle.
Yeah.
And when I cut the last strap off, it just like, the tension from the strap letting go and it not having that stable rest of the 4x4 down on the other end. As soon as it popped open, they just came towards me. These, 12 inches by 12 inches. So it's it's a tube, a square tube. It's hollow.
Okay.
3/8 inches thick. So, about yay thick.
Yeah.
On the, the each sidewall.
40 foot long.
40 feet long. Yeah.
So it weighed
tons. It weighs a lot.
Yeah.
And 2 of them just came off. And
now, how high were they compared to?
Like up to here.
Chest.
On me.
Okay.
I have the video footage of it. I'll try to get it to where we can watch it. Like,
how did you get the video footage?
We have cameras everywhere.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Fuck. So it came at me for a split second. I tried to like put my hands up and just like push it back, but that's not gonna fucking work.
Yeah.
And then honestly, I don't really remember what happened, to be honest with you. I know that afterwards I measured the distance between the bundle that I was cutting open and the one it was sitting on, and because there was a bunch of shit behind me too. And there was 3 feet of space, and the 2 things that the 2 bundles there, the 2 columns that fell were a foot a piece. So that's 2 feet,
Yeah.
and there was space in between. So I really don't know how it didn't like crush my legs. I don't know how. It's fucked up, man.
So you had less than a foot of clearance, and I assume they hit the ground hard.
I would say, dude, they landed on other pieces of wood and they just obliterated them.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh, because there was more down below.
Yeah, there was
okay.
like, yeah.
So I was just imagining them hitting the ground and making a terrible noise.
I mean, they did make a lot of fucking noise.
Did it get everyone's attention?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It hit my leg. It hit the side of my leg, my left leg. My left knee is pretty sore, but it could have been so much worse, dude.
Oh boy. So
I don't know how I ended up on top. Like, I'll show you the video. I'm cutting it open. I'm cutting it. And it pops and like moves towards me. And at the end of it, I'm on top of them. I'm like sitting on top of them. And I just don't know how it happened, man.
You don't know how you got there?
It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know, man. It's fucking weird.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like I just don't think that, because I remember I should have taken a picture of it before I moved the columns and cut them down. But I just don't understand how there was enough room for my leg to have not gotten at least pinned between the other column that was there.
If it shattered the wood underneath it, it would have shattered your leg.
For sure.
Golly, man. So
it was a close call, man.
So were you like in shock afterwards?
No, not really.
No?
Yeah. I'm a cold motherfucker, man. Like I don't react. I got a cool head on my shoulders. I'm thankful for that because it's come in handy a few times.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I wasn't. I was like surprisingly not rattled at all.
So no weird dreams after, no fear to.
No weird dreams or anything like that. But every now and then I think about it and like, holy fuck, that was close, man. Like I was like inches away from just my legs being just obliterated, just completely fucked.
Jesus. Have you cut the straps on them since to get more? I mean,
I
had to do that again. And
no, I haven't had to do that.
Do you think you might be concerned, be afraid next time you do?
Not really. I've done it 100 times before that, and there was never any issue. And
so, what would you do in the future to make sure that?
I'm just gonna make sure that the wood is like sticking out completely.
Jeez, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about.
It was fucked up, man. That was a scary situation.
All right. When I went to Nashville, I got to listen to an audiobook. Because of the airport time and the flight time, I listened to a whole audiobook. And I also brought with me another Alan Watts book. And I started reading. I didn't get very far, but I started reading some of the Alan Watts book. And there was a bunch of shit in there that I thought was interesting. So if you want to hear about it, I got a couple things.
Sure.
So I learned about this book. I don't know how I heard about it. I don't remember anymore. It's called The God Theory by an astrophysicist named.
Was that the one you sent me?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't have Audible anymore, but
yeah. Well, if you listen to it, I think you would be surprised. The reason I sent it to you was because I'll tell you selfishly, the reason I send it to you is not because I think you would necessarily enjoy it. Although the beginning of the book, I think you would enjoy. It's because he says the shit that I say in my more mystical moments, and in many cases, word for word.
Yeah.
And he's an astrophysicist, so I'm like, I guess I'm smart after all.
King of the castle.
King of the castle. So this guy, I learned a little bit about him. Bernard Haisch is his name. He wrote this book, The God Theory. He's written other books.
And Haisch's son.
It must be. He's known for dabbling in science that is less than credible. So like he'll talk about UFOs. He'll talk about stuff that serious scientists will avoid. So if you read his wiki, you get a little bit of that. It's like, yeah, he's a real scientist.
Graham Hancock.
Yeah, he's like Graham
More
Hancock.
More respect than Graham Hancock because he is a scientist.
Because he is a scientist.
Yeah.
So he's a legit astrophysicist. He worked with NASA. He's done all kinds of like government contracts, and he has a theory that he put out that talks about 0 point energy or the 0 point field. And I talked about that a little bit when I learned about it. I thought it was amazing that even at like with no matter at all in an absolute vacuum, there's this underlying vibration going on, this 0-point field of energy that is always constantly there, and that electrons will pop in and out of existence from the field, like literally something material coming from nothing, essentially. And he talks about the 0-point energy being the cause of inertia. And he wrote papers with some other scientist, some actual theoretical physicist, about how this might make possible new types of propulsion. So the idea is really cutting edge shit. This might be a way, if we could understand the science of this 0-point energy, where we could travel without traditional propulsion, that kind of thing. He's a smart dude.
He's a smart dude.
So he wrote this book, and he said, and I'm just going to paraphrase it. I wish I would have had the time to go back and get the quotes, because if I did, you would see what I mean when I said this guy sounds like me. Now, the shit that I say, I worked out from having this mystical experience that we've talked about ad nauseum. But the point is, I had these ideas through what I would call basically a revelation. I don't know how else to say it. In religious terms, it was a revelation. He seemingly came to these conclusions from thinking philosophically and learning about science in the world. And he says that consciousness or mind is the basis of matter, not the other way around. So materialist science, modern science says, no. Consciousness is a side effect of matter following the laws of physics and nothing else. He says, oh no, the laws of physics are something like an idea in this cosmic mind. The laws of physics are something like a thought in the mind of God. And he says, God is essentially this fundamental consciousness. Mm-hmm. And he connects that to the 0-point field. And he says that the material cosmos and everything in it is an embodiment of that cosmic consciousness. And that it becomes embodied in order to experience itself. Like how much of this shit sound familiar to you? It's
pretty
spot. Let's show a real high level summary, and he gets into some science and more about the 0-point field and stuff that's over my head. But that's basically the gist. And I just thought that was amazing. Like, I thought it was amazing. I've heard some people say shit that's similar to the stuff I say. Alan Watts and Aldous Huxley, Daniel Torridon, lots of people that I've encountered that say things like this. But this guy said like verbatim shit that I've said that I thought was mine, Yeah.
Does it bum you out at all?
It would have years ago, but I sort of came to terms with the idea that there's nothing new under the sun, and also that human experience it's mostly universal, and I know that the type of mystical experience I had, lots of people have had going back to thousands of years. I'm not special in any way, and those experiences are replicable, and so this guy had the same ideas that I've had, but it's just the level of parallels. I'm going to have to do a solo episode on it. But the level of parallels are just fascinating to me. If you got nothing on Bernard, I can move on to Alan Watts.
Bernard Haisch.
Yes.
No. That's interesting, though. Yeah. I'd be interested to hear.
Well, I don't know if when I send it to you, if you have to buy it or if I'm allowed to give it.
I would have. Oh, no. Well, I think you can only do that once, like with a new account, so you wouldn't be able to do it anyways. But
okay.
Yeah, no, if I would have been able to listen to it free, I would have downloaded it. But yeah, you had to buy it.
Yeah, you should. Or if I do the episode on it, just listen to my episode. You'll get the idea. All right. So Alan Watts, I fucking love Alan Watts, man. That guy is the best.
Yeah.
So I've read the Joyous Cosmology, and I talked about it on the podcast. The one I'm reading now is called Beyond Theology, The Art of Godsmanship. This is what it's called.
All right.
And so I just want to read to you a couple of these quotes that I picked out. And I was selfishly you're going to see the point I'm trying to make here, but I want to get your thoughts. So he talks, basically Alan Watts is a very, very smart man, very mystical man, and he studies religion. And so he does a lot of comparison between Eastern and Western religions and mysticism. And I love that shit. I love it. I eat it up. That's the kind of shit I like to do. So he says,
that shit up.
Eat it up. He said, in this book, he said, your eye inside your skin and my eye inside mine are pockets of the same current. I am as unconscious of my being, in fact, the whole current, as I am unconscious of the brain functions which underlie consciousness. So basically, he's saying that what you are at the deepest level, fundamentally, is identical to what I am. Very much something I've said many times before. You and I are not distinct beings, that fundamentally we're identical, actually. And then he says, it's not just that you and I are identical. It's that current that is in everything. That's what we are. It's like, it's not just that we share an identity. It's that identity is only one thing across, all of being. And I thought that was very cool, very in line with me. Then he says, Western cultures have bred a type of human being who feels strongly alienated from everything which is not his own consciousness. So he starts to talk about Western culture making this idea of like identifying your soul and my soul being identical, and that soul being identical with God. This whole idea that I like and talk about, that just Western culture estranges us from that, makes that idea seem weirder than other cultures think it is. So if you go and talk to a Hindu, they got no problems with that. Talk to a Buddhist, they got no problems with that. Talk to a Christian, they think you're a fucking loon. So what do you think about that Western culture? And he specifies, because he says Catholic and Protestant orthodoxies stand powerfully opposed to any viewpoint that seems to compromise the integrity of the individual soul. Right? You have an individual soul, and that's important. It's like your soul can't be everybody's soul, right? You're responsible for your soul, for your actions, for your karma. So it's important that your soul be yours and not everyone's, right? What do you think of that?
I mean, I don't know. I agree that is how the West is. Yeah, I mean, at least to some extent. Yeah, I don't know.
It's like if you're responsible for making it to heaven, it's like the onus is on you for your behaviors and for your interactions with other people. And if you say that the thing that the soul that you're preserving or purifying so that you can make it to heaven is attached to or one with other assholes, souls. It's like, what does that mean? Am I responsible for you somehow? Your sins? Mm-hmm. Something like that. It's like it is something like off-putting about that. And then he says, God and man are identical. Hold on. Yeah. He says, any suggestion that there is some inner level at which God and man are identical. So this is the objection. He says, for God loves and judges every single creature separately. So that's the idea. That kind of goes out the window if my soul is everybody's soul. All right. Then he says, in Hinduism, the crucial doctrine of Tat Svam Asi, which means thou art that, asserts the ultimate identity of oneself and the Godhead. So thou art that means I am God, something like that. He says the self referred to here is not the ego, not the personal soul, but the Ruach Adonai, or breath of the Lord, which gave life to the clay image of Adam. And that was one of the exact arguments I made when I did that episode about is Jesus the only God man? And I was talking about theosis. Remember that? Mm-hmm. The Ruach Adonai, the breath of God. It's like that's the thing that we share in common with each other and with God. It's not our ego. It's not the thing that makes us individuals. It's the thing that makes us one. And he uses that Jewish idea to make that point, which I think was brilliant. And then he says, as one of the Christian mystics put it, he is thy being, but thou art not his. And that's really what I wanted to talk to you about. He is thy being. God is my being, but I am not his being. So that's the difference between, when we talk about I'm God, when I make that statement, and we go back and forth on what does that mean in terms of God the Father or an external God. If I'm God, what does that mean about the external God? And we've had many conversations back and forth about that. And this point, he is thy being. God is my being. God is everything that I am, but I am not everything God is.
Mm-hmm.
I think that puts the words to what I maybe can't do justice to. It's like there is a God outside of me. And I think that makes sense to me. Everything that I am is God. And that's why I feel comfortable saying I am God, because there's nothing that I am that isn't God. But God is more than just me. And I've said that from the very beginning. I've said that from the very beginning when I had that first mystical experience. So I don't know I don't know what that means exactly. You're nodding your head like you get it and you understand, but that's what I meant to say,
That's what you meant
when
to
we
say.
when we had this conversation in the past, something like that.
Okay. I don't really. I mean, I like that. That's
That doesn't seem blasphemous to you. That seems like that fits in with the.
It seems like it could potentially be blasphemous, to be honest with you, but it doesn't seem like it has to be either.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Good. I like it.
You mentioned earlier, what was it? Shit, it slipped my mind. What were you talking about?
What with those earlier quotes?
Oh, you were talking about Western people don't like the idea of am I responsible? Am I responsible for their sin too? What do you think about that?
That's a great question, man.
Am I responsible for other people's sins because we're all one?
Well, I think that the story of Jesus is exactly that. It's one man who's responsible for the sins of all men. I think it's very difficult to argue that that's the case with Jesus. Jesus, the sacrifice of Jesus was for the sins of humanity, right?
Yeah.
So one man paid the price for all men.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something there that's hard to dance around when we say that. So it's true for Jesus. Is it true for us? So there's a quote, I can't remember where it comes from, and I'm struggling with it. But it's something like one man can't be saved until all men are saved. Something like that. Do you know what I mean? Where I'm getting that from?
Nope.
Damn, it's way in the vault. It's deep in the vault. So there's something like that too. It's like I did an episode on Jesus and Buddha this last Wednesday, which if you have a chance to listen to, it's fascinating. Not even for it's fascinating for not just the similarities between Jesus and Buddha, which is what the episode is about. It's fascinating for the level of parallel and what they taught. Like even in the scripture, in the words, it's fascinating how close some of them are. And I never knew, I never imagined how close some of these were. If you listen to it, you'll see what I mean. But even in the case of Buddha, Buddha reaches enlightenment, and he could just transcend and be gone, but he doesn't. He stays back in order to teach others to transcend, to reach nirvana. So Buddha has a duty to himself. That's what's right. What's right is to benefit humanity, and there's a parallel there with Jesus, like we said earlier. So I can't say no to that really, but I don't really understand from my perspective. Like I don't want to be responsible for other people's sins because I don't have any power over their behavior.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
I don't like it. I don't want to be responsible for other people's sins. I guess it just depends on what you mean by that, because in the way that Jesus was responsible for everyone's sins, I'm not capable of being responsible for everyone's sins in that manner, but that can still symbolically mean something for me in my relation to other people's sins. You know what I mean?
Right.
I can not, what's the word I'm looking for? I think about what happened with Daniel Torridon and his religion. if somebody is, falls into apostasy or something like that, you don't have to turn your back on them completely. You know what I mean?
Right. Sure.
I mean, depending on how it goes, you might have to. I don't know, but things like that. Not like when you find out that somebody is sinning, you like turn your back on them completely. That's not really what you're supposed to do. Now,
Right.
I do think that one thing that runs through Christianity nowadays is people want to take the words of Jesus and like just push them a little bit farther than it seems like Jesus really wanted them to go. Like if somebody's sinning, you just support them in their sin. No, that's not how it works.
Right.
Like if somebody is, you are going to sin, you're going to fail, but you can't just like lie to yourself and say, no, this is fine. My sin is fine. It's not a sin. It's good.
Sure.
It's a good part of me. It's one of the reasons I'm going to heaven. Like no, that doesn't work.
Right.
Doesn't work for me.
Being responsible for somebody else's sins sounds to me like moral communism.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of like reparations and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
So I'm not down with it that way either.
Let me ask you this question. Let's suppose you continue on your spiritual path and you start to have like real powerful changes in your life for the better. And you get to the point where like, maybe you're like at peace, let's say, because people say that a lot about like religious experience. Let's say you reach some level of peace or satisfaction or something with life, and maybe this goes back to that idea of submission and all that. Maybe you stop thinking a certain way, your psychology improves, you're happier. Would you feel then any obligation to help other people get there? Like once you know that's possible?
Yeah.
So is that something like being responsible for other people's sins? Because something makes me think like if I got to a point like that and I just said, you know what, I got there, I'm good, I'm happy, I'm just going to spend this bliss and I can't imagine doing that. I would feel.
I know what you mean, and like you're called in the Bible to, be fishers of men. You know what I'm saying? So you are called to not just keep it for you. It's like that old, what's that old song, that kid's Bible song? It's like, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. You don't hide it under a bushel.
No, you don't.
You fucking let that shine.
Let it shine.
So
yes, you do.
I just think that phrasing it as being responsible for other people's sins is like a novel way of saying that.
Yeah, maybe.
But I mean, if that's what you're saying, then yeah, I do think that that's a good way of being responsible for other people's sins.
You're right. You're right about the language, because I could say it differently. I could say that you're
responsible for like letting it shine.
You're responsible. Yeah, you're responsible for helping them
evangelize.
Yeah, something like that. You could say it differently, but but there is a way. I think that it makes sense to say that somehow it makes the burden of their salvation. You're sharing it with them. You're helping carry that cross, bro.
Yeah.
See what I did there?
Yes, indeed.
All right. I got two more quotes here from this book. He says, Hinduism asserts that all experience whatsoever is God's, and that God is the one and only knower and seer. I've said that shit 1,000 times. I said, we are the experience God is having. That's what I've said. He says, Hinduism asserts that all experience whatsoever is God's, and that God is the only knower and seer. And when I say things like consciousness is the oneness, that's what I mean. And I even say it's like the thing that's looking out through your eyes, the thing that knows behind your eyes. It's not your brain. It's not your, it's not your material body. It's something else. And whatever that thing is identical to mine. One of the quotes from my mystical experience that I wrote down was, another set of eyes for that which sees. Because that which sees is the one. It's the one thing, So I get a little bit of that from Alan, and then he says, this is really what I want to ask you about. He says Christianity objects to the monism of the Hindus. By that he means the oneness of the human and the divine. Christianity objects to the monism of the Hindus because without differentiation, there is no place for the supreme values of love and relationship. Then he says, however, what the Christian says about the 3 in 1 and 1 in 3 relationship of the Trinity is almost exactly what the Hindus say about the many in one and the one in the many. And then he says, if the latter makes love between the members unreal, so does the former. So you remember when I was telling you that I was arguing with Jim fellow on Twitter, and he said basically in what I took to be a very derogatory way, that my belief that everything is God, and to the point where I can say something as blasphemous as I am God, precludes the notion of having a relationship with God, and that's key to Christianity. I basically felt like he was telling me that I could never be a legitimate Christian because I can never have a relationship with God whilst I'm confused about who's who. And then Alan Watts brings up this idea that the Trinity, breaks down the oneness of God into persons and makes the idea of God relational. And what is the relationship between Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, all of which are God? The relationship is between God and God itself. And that he says this is exactly the mystical and Hindu idea of God being one in many, God and the material cosmos. And the relationship is between you and me. And that's a relationship between God and God. It's God's self-experience. All of it is self-experience. And I thought that was a really interesting way of talking about it, because I defended or tried to defend the idea that I have a relationship with God. And I talked to you about that in more explicit terms when I talk about praying, like who am I praying to? And I told you, it's like, I still feel as though I'm praying to something outside of me or beyond me in some way. And yet one of the greatest parts about this mystical experience for me is being able to have that experience and identify with the thing it is I'm speaking with. And so how is that possible? It's paradoxical and it makes no sense. And Alan Watts basically says, well, maybe so, but if it's nonsense from the Hindu perspective of one in the many, then it's nonsense within the context of Christianity. And basically what he's saying is it's not nonsense. What do you think about that, man?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I think that idea of the one in the many that pops up, all throughout philosophy. So, it doesn't surprise me that it's going to pop up in Hinduism. And they are very similar.
Yeah.
They're very similar. I think that there's truth. There's a lot of truth out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that truth was found in different parts of the world at different times, and it's crazy to see the truths that people found separately. You know what I'm saying? Like independent of each other. That kind of stuff is very interesting.
I agree. And then there's the question of perennialism, and I don't really know. I feel like you probably would resist the idea of perennialism. That's just my assumption. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, yes. I mean, unless you're talking about like perennial Christianity,
I guess I imagine, and I said this in my Jesus and Buddha episode that I just did, and I was basically speaking to you when I said it, that if you imagine these parallels between Jesus and Buddha, which I talk about on that episode, and the conclusion you come to is that all religions are equal and all religions lead to the same place. Like, I probably disagree with that.
Yeah, I do disagree.
And I know, and I assumed you would.
Yeah.
But are you surprised that I disagree with it?
No, because it's kind of ridiculous on its face. Like I said just a minute ago, I think that a lot of religions and philosophical traditions, they can find truths for sure. But But just because you found some truths doesn't mean that those truths are pointing you at the same things that other things are pointing you at.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It reminds me of Jordan Peterson when he says that there are an infinite number of facts. So you have to pick and choose the ones that you want to believe or the ones that you want to include in your argument. But the fact that there's an infinite number of facts means that there's an infinite number of arguments that could be made, and an infinite number of directions. And you can use the same facts to make a different argument, you know? Got a sneeze coming. There it is. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm probably gonna finish that Alan Watts book. I'm certain I'll do a solo episode on it. But I was just loving it, man. I love that dude.
Alan Watts, man. Yeah. He's got a bunch of good shit on YouTube, man.
I listened to some of it.
He's got a nice voice, too.
Alan Watts. Another guy that I've been checking out on YouTube is Richard Feynman, physicist. Super. And he's like been around forever, and he's got tons of shit out there. He's really fun to listen to.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else do I have? I also put in just a couple of things from the news. So we're getting close. The First Republic Bank bankruptcy. Did you see that?
Not really.
Well, this is the third major bank that I've seen. Maybe there's been others, but the third major bank that's collapsed since the Fed has started to raise rates and has started to create problems. It happened with two banks in pretty quick succession, and they got bought. And now it's happened with First Republic Bank, and they're in the process of bidding, hoping somebody will buy it up. So that's three banks that have collapsed. I don't know how often that happens, if it's just getting attention now, and maybe it happens from time to time. But I haven't heard of it since the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And now we've seen three of them.
Scary, man.
Scary. On top of that, with everything going on in Ukraine and Russia, Sudan is in the middle of basically a civil war right now. And it's like, Sudan, what does that mean? I don't know. On a global scale, what does Sudan being in the civil war mean? Probably not much. But
on the global scale, yeah, probably not much. Sucks for Sudan, though.
Sucks for Sudan, but the fact that it's happening now with all this other stuff going on, I don't know if it means anything, but it's just scary. This is another one of those things. I also saw a story about farm animals that we're eating and how they treat them with, antibiotics and stuff that, how they do.
Yeah. One
of the things they're doing with pork is they're vaccinating them with mRNA vaccines as an alternative to the types of like antibiotics and stuff that they're giving them. And the gist of the article was, you might not want to eat pork.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how that works. If I didn't want to get the mRNA vaccine, the COVID vaccine, because I was concerned about whatever, and then I go and have a BLT.
Yeah.
Am I getting some, of that gene editing shit into my body? Like I'm not a scientist, dude. I don't know. Should I not be eating pork? And the article's like, it's happening with pork right now, but it will shortly be happening in beef and everything else.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're not going to be able to get around it.
It's fucked up, man.
Fucked up.
Real fucked up.
They did say, on the bright side, that one of the things that they're already in the works on is making labels, making it necessary to put that on labels. So when you go to the store, it's going to say, this animal is treated with the mRNA. It probably won't say that, or probably say something else that doesn't sound quite as scary.
Yeah.
So that, and then lastly, maybe not lastly, I have a couple others, but there's those diabetes drugs that they've been talking about, Wingarvi and Ozempic, and people are using them just for weight loss, but they're diabetes drugs. And the big controversy is the demand is so high for it because everyone's so fat that diabetics can't get it. And it was made for people with diabetes, but now it's just a bunch of fat people want it to lose weight. So they're coming up with a new, they already have it. It's called Mounjaro. It's a similar type of drug that's already being used to treat type 2 diabetes, but they're in the process of getting it FDA approved as a weight loss treatment. And it's like Ozempic on steroids. They said that the average, like, people lose like 20% of their body weight who take this drug.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I wonder what the mechanism is.
Oh, they said that I don't know the details, but apparently when you eat certain kind of things, or maybe just when you eat anything, there's like I don't know how do I want to say chemicals, but there's like reactions in your like gut and your colon and all that shit, and it sends signals to your brain. And if you're eating like sugar and stuff, those signals are telling you to eat more sugar. What this does is it like binds to those receptors, so that those signals that tell you you're hungry or you want more of that sweet pie you were just eating, they don't work anymore. They're basically clogged up by the medicine. And so people don't want to eat, and they're full really quickly, and they
Seems good.
It does seem good. One of the side effects, cancer.
Nice.
So
just a little cancer.
Just a little cancer.
No big deal.
So you basically have what is in essence a miracle weight loss drug
that gives you cancer.
And everybody's going to want it. They said it's going to be like a $200 billion drug when they approve it for weight loss.
You know who doesn't want it?
Who?
This guy. I don't fucking want it. I'm good on that, dude.
Yeah.
I'll just not eat as much. That's good enough for me.
Yeah, the discipline. So anyway, that was in the news.
Would you recommend that anybody take that drug?
No, I wouldn't. But you know what how the article framed it was like, here's all the different serious health consequences of being obese.
Yeah.
And this drug, which might give you cancer, will remedy all of these lists of things, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, all these terrible things. So what's a little risk of a little cancer if you can avoid all these other, that's how they're spinning it.
It's crazy. Good, man.
RFK Jr. That's what I want to ask you about. Have you been following any of?
He's the guy who's going to run for president against Joe.
Yes.
I mean, I know, I'm not like deep into it or anything, but.
So I don't either. I don't know much about him, but he's a Kennedy, first of all. So that's something. He seems to be more of a old-fashioned Democrat. By that, I mean like partially reasonable. And I don't hate that.
Yeah.
He got a lot of shit for being anti-vax. I don't want to say anti-vax, but he was against the mRNA vaccine being released globally without the proper testing and all that. Reasonable. And he's that's refreshing.
Yeah.
He also is against transgendered women competing in women's sports. And that seems to make sense to me.
Yeah, it's a little weak for me, but
But the fact that a Democrat says it at all is refreshing to me. He's already polling at 20%, which apparently is impressive. And they don't want a primary because they don't want Biden to be challenged by him or anybody else. So they're basically trying to keep him out. So I was going to run that by you. What say you?
I don't know enough about his position on things to know whether or not I think that he is like legit.
Yeah, me either.
And when I say legit, I mean like not, like controlled opposition. You know what I mean?
I hadn't really thought of that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. The fact that he gets out there and he's saying some things that make sense to me doesn't like assuage my fears. It actually makes me more suspicious, to be honest with you. You get some guy who is when I get somebody out there who's saying a bunch of stuff that makes sense to me, I'm like, that guy's probably a Fed,
Yeah.
So I don't know what to think. I'm gonna have to like dig into it a little bit more.
Yeah, I'd be curious
as it becomes more like of a realistic thing. I'm sure I will. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I just hope. I guess it's good that he is like against transgender women competing in women's sports. It's so fucking confusing and convoluted.
It sure is.
He's against dudes competing with women.
Yes.
Yes. So that's good. But I just hope that whoever the Republican nominee is not like tiptoeing through the tulips around the issue on that one. Like I want, I'm like down with what Michael Malice said the other day that he got in a bunch of trouble for, which is we need to eradicate transgenderism, which a lot of people took as we need to like round them all up and
that's
boxcar situation them. which is not what he said.
That's nonsense.
But I agree with that. I think we do need to eradicate transgenderism.
Yeah. So you bring up controlled opposition, and I honestly, feel a little bit shameful about being naive, just continuously naive. Didn't even occur to me, but as soon as you say it, I'm like, that makes perfect sense, because the Dems play 4D chess, and that just fits right in. But also the idea of like an older Democrat, like, there's no older Democrat than Biden, but an older Democrat that has those like old-fashioned liberal values to step up and start like pointing fingers at his own party and like saying like, speaking sense, that just is such an attractive idea to me. It's like, yes, why don't we have somebody from the Democratic Party step up and start pointing out the absurdity of what's happening? That I would love that.
The problem is that the movers and the shakers know that that's a compelling, they're like, if we do this, they're gonna like that. This
is exactly why Bernie Sanders endorsed Biden immediately. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
What in the fuck?
Fucking Bernie. Bernie's so pathetic. What a bitch.
Yep. Oh boy. I also heard a bunch of talk about how the Chinese, not only in China but in the land holdings they have in Africa with all the mines and everything, that the United States government's continuing to push for EV cars, right? And they all need these batteries, and the Chinese control the supply of the manganese and the lithium and all the stuff that we need to build the batteries. So our country continues to push all the industry, to move in this direction. And the fear is that if we do that, we basically do it by the good graces of the Chinese who have the supply. And then at any point,
they cut it off.
They can cut it off. Yeah. And then it becomes a national security risk. And I was just like, what in the fuck? What do you think of that? We're going to go green for the world. We're going to make Greta Thunberg happy. And then the Chinese are just like, you would be ours.
I mean, I think that, Joe Biden and people like that are acting like China is this big, like some people that we need to be worried about, but they want for America exactly what's going on in China right now. These people who are acting like we're going to go to war with China, they want exactly what's going on in China right now.
Yep.
So I just like, when you talk about China having all that and us giving them all that power to potentially turn the tap off for us, like I feel like the people who are pushing for us to move in that direction, they're working hand in hand with the people who are running China. Like I just don't think that.
See, that's another possibility. That the other possibility is that this is like a conspiracy theory, obviously, but imagine that the relationship between the Bidens in general, or specifically, or America, like the ruling class in general, behind the scenes is lockstep with China, hand in hand with China. So all of this that we're seeing is something like China governing through a puppet who is Biden or anybody else, let's say, for that matter, that's sitting in that seat.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's China governing through a puppet. I would say that some group of people, and I think that it's probably more than one group of people, they get their hands on the reins of power throughout, like it changes. I think sometimes this group wrestles the reins of power out of the hands of this group and then they have it for a while. But I think that those people are controlling America and China and Russia, that's just kind of how I think that things actually work.
Yeah. I mean, the economies are so intertwined and there's so much money to be made.
Yeah.
And I know it's conspiracy theory, it's conspiratorial and all that, but
yeah, but it's also fucking true. I mean, like I know that, like I said that, fuck man, this cord is getting all wrapped on my arm.
Yep.
Like there are 100% people who are in, what's the word I'm looking for? They're members of the bureaucracy of the United States who definitely have a vested interest in, you know, all that stuff with China, those relationships being developed.
Sure.
Now, I know that there are people in the bureaucracy who have other interests who don't necessarily want that to happen. But I do think that, like, the idea that we're voting for presidents and they're calling the shots, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the truth. You know, it's these people moving behind the scenes who are really making things happen, and they're the ones who have these vested interests in, you know, what's going on in the Ukraine, business interests of China, things like that.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think it's probably a tapestry that's interconnected with a bunch of really wealthy and well-connected people all over the world who have their own agenda, and it's all being played out through puppet governments. It's all being played out through political authority, and it's being centralized as quickly as possible.
Oh yeah.
You know? And that brings me to one last story that I saw, which we may not have much to say on, but it's a good enough place as any to land. Tony Fauci.
What about him?
He was I don't know if it was a interview or he was on TV or whatever, but he was just saying that we've got to get away from the blame game.
Oh yeah.
We've got to get away from the blame game. So there's like a lot of pressure coming from Rand Paul and others that want to make Fauci criminally liable, and so he's left the government trying to lay low, and now he's saying, after having kind of spearheaded this whole operation, this whole mRNA vaccine operation that has been proven ineffective in lots of ways, and lots of completely untruthful things that he said to the public as truth have all come to light, and lots of people got vaccinated, and lots of people got negative side effects from it, and all this.
Mm-hmm.
Now he wants to make sure we don't play the blame game.
Of course he does.
And then you see those reels of videos of Fauci, trying to shame everybody who didn't get the vaccine. And now he doesn't want to play the blame game.
Yep. Well, like I said earlier, if I was in charge, which I'm not, Fauci, a few months ago, Fauci should be lucky that I'm not in charge. Now that I'm, I try to be a good Christian, he's maybe got less to worry about with me in charge, but maybe not too. I don't know. Maybe I would prefer what I initially wanted for Fauci to what he would have in store for him if I was in charge. A few months ago, and honestly, there's a big part of me that still feels this way. It's like, you guys gotta pay the ultimate price for what you did.
Well, I've told you this before, I think, but I'll say it again. One of the things that they used to do in ancient Samaria during the New Year's celebration is the king would come down from his throne, and he would be led out of the city walls by the people, and he would be forced to confess all of the things that he failed at during that year, and he would be ritually beaten. And then when he was done being beaten by the people, they would raise him back up and clean him off and put him back on his throne. And it was a new, fresh start, And the king had to come down to the lowest level and had to expose himself to the people and had to admit all of his failures and wrongdoing to the people.
That's what you're suggesting for Fauci?
Shame.
Yeah.
Shame.
Full circle, baby.
Shame.
Well, there